Righty, so welcome to the third of our seminars. Again, just note that these are recorded and they've been posted up to YouTube to review if you wish. We're going to go through the requirements for the next couple of weeks. But has everyone received answers to emails? If not, please raise your hand or let Josh know and we'll chase it up to see what's happened.
Good. Are you there? Yeah, just a microphone. I don't have that.
What's the problem? Sorry?
A back coming through from someone's microphone. I can't.
I think it's Brian. Brian's not muted.
Yeah, no, I don't have that control at the moment.
Oh, sorry. Let me go get out and do the control. Okay, stop sharing screen. Bear with us. Sorry. Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. When things go wrong, things go wrong. Share the screen again. And off we go. Okay, we're still on the right screen?
Yes, that's working.
Okay. Okay, we should have finalised and submitted our video presentations if possible. Josh, do you recall what the new due date was? I can't off the top of my head, but we did extend it so people can get things in.
It's now, I believe, the 23rd at 0900 UTC.
Right. Okay, so still a couple of days. If you haven't got it in, please try to get it in. It is worth a fair bit. We will be running through all of these as quickly as we possibly can, but there are a lot of them, and providing feedback on them. If you've used YouTube, we might just pop a comment in the comment section of the video. Has anyone had any problems with that? If so, please let us know, and we'll see what we can work out. There have been a couple that we've given extensions to, but that's for fairly serious problems that they're having. Okay. All right, so we've gone through all the Canvanizers. I'm actually running through them still, trying to get a few comments back to you on them. Generally, they were really well done. The average result is 18.6 out of 20, which is and we're pleasantly surprised at the amount of information that was included in the Canvanizer and the effort that was put in. Now, this is going to be really worthwhile because the Canvanizer is one of the ways you can build up each of the next sections that you'll be submitting, and it's a really good platform to use as a living document. So change it continually, keep it up to date, and use it to present your ideas or develop your documents to present your ideas to possible working through your own company. So it's a good tool, and most people have made a really good effort on it and a good result. So if you've got any questions or you want any feedback directly on it, just drop me an email and I'll get to re-include the Canvanizer link if you wouldn't mind, and I'll run through it and give you specific pointers on it. So this fortnight should continue to use your team as a sounding board for developing a prototype your IoT idea. The peer review, getting help from associates, your other classmates, is very, very beneficial. The video has been extended, so we'll skip over that one. And what we would like you to do is continue to watch those business funding and planning videos, as they're a great basis to assist you in developing your business plan. Start working on the costing report, and that's what we'll be running through a little bit shortly. In fact, now. Okay, so the next thing that's due is the market research and costing plan. We've created a template, so that will help you in how to put things together. excuse me, we're all suffering from various viruses over this side of the world at the moment. The market research and costing plan, the breakdown of the marks is it's 15% of your overall mark, so it's worth a little bit more than the because there's a significant amount of further work involved. And it's split into these. We have the industry analysis, which is 25%. We have 10%. The process is really going back to what you have in your Canvanizer and describing what your product and service is so that you can look at how you market this. So it's identifying the areas that your business should be marketed into, and detailing how you would do that. Pricing strategy is 10%. That's critical, and as I've said, and I'll go into a little bit more detail, there are several ways of approaching pricing strategy. Two main ways would be either as a fully, so you'd want to recover all of your costs, including your research and development, the time you put in developing it, money you paid for this course, etc. Or there's the social improvement, philanthropic way of pricing, in which case you would look at what the market there, only the recovery of your manufacturing costs, a small margin for maintaining and looking at warranties or taking care of warranties, etc., and get it out as cheaply as possible so it can have the greatest impact. And the final section will be the SWOT analysis. This is the strengths, weaknesses, black on that, opportunities and threats. These are a very, very common business tool and carry a lot of weight with investors. So that's worth 25%. We'll have a look at what that means in a sec. 15% of overall, so definitely worth putting a bit of effort into. Okay, so the purpose of the plan is to consolidate your own ideas. The intended audience for this is just and yourself. However, if you decide to capitalize on your IoT idea, the audience would actually broaden. You'd want to include third parties, those that will be used to secure finance, investors, your own, or you're employed by a company. Need to be made before you complete this plan. The business structure that you're using, are you going to work as a sole trader? Are you going to look at perhaps just creating the prototype of your idea and then selling that off? That's actually quite a good way for a commercial development. The cost of setting up, particularly if you've got a product which is extremely volume, expensive for those runs. We talked in one of the groups about the cost of just creating, say, the housing for your sensor device. And in Australian money, which is sort of a little bit less than American money, but to give you an idea, if you're going to injection mold the housing for your device, you've got to come up with at least, depending on the device, $10,000 to $40,000. That's probably $7 to $30 US. Just for the tool which will allow you to do the injection molding. And then to make it worthwhile for them to start the machine up and start printing, you're probably producing 10,000 of the cases. The cases themselves will be very, very a few cents, but you've got 10,000. Are you going to sell 10,000? You would certainly hope so. But then there's the assembly costs. You put 10,000 devices together. You'd have to pay wages, you'd have to have the manufacturing set up for it. So it becomes very, very expensive. And in cases of these large runs, it may actually be worth taking it to an established company and completely as one thing to them and let them worry about the manufacture licensing it. So when you're looking at your market research costing plan, think about whether you want to do it yourself, whether it's something that would be well out to others, or is it an idea that's worth just selling off in one lump and taking your profit and running, which can be a worthwhile way of doing things. Depends how involved you are with the technology. Now, there is an important thing that you will need to run through, crucial to the success of any product in the environment in which you're going to operate. There's quite a few finding out information on this. There's government statistics, so if you're aiming at a certain population, you can get government statistics and UN statistics for some other things that will give you an idea of what size is. So, for example, the product was something to assist people with vision impairment. You could go to the World Health Organization, look up their reports on vision impairment, and find out that there is 140 million people in the world. So therefore, you know that your market is possibly 140 million people, and you can narrow it down from there. So it's a great way to get a fair idea of what possible market there may be. Other areas to start, industry associations, industry publications, but one of the best places to start is good old Dr. Google. So Google a set of keywords. Look for these, try and pick out the best terms that are giving you the most relevant results. Make a note of those, and then you use those Google terms to search down with more reliable sources. I'll mention a couple of areas. The Google and things like Wikipedia, great places to start looking. So if you want to get a general idea of the technology or what people are doing or companies, Wikipedia works really well to get started. However, one can change anything they like on Wikipedia, not a reliable source. So it's a good thing to use to find out what people are thinking and what people are talking about, but don't rely on the information you get either from Google directly, because it's just searching what people have already posted, or from Wikipedia because and you don't know that it's a confirmed source. However, they will lead you to confirmed sources. Most Wikipedia articles have at the end a list of references. Look where they're published from and decide whether they're reliable or not. Once you've got your search terms sorted, it's a good idea to go off and do a patent search, and there's patent search engines around. In Australia, we've got the IP Australia search engine. You can also use the Google patent search, and that should return reasonably reliable results of the patents. And patent useful because in the patent they have to explain their entire approach to a problem. You can see that's a similar approach to yours if you're going to have an intellect. If it is the same, there's no harm in using it in our case because we're not commercial. But if you're going to build that into your final design, you will need to get permission, license to use technology. So it's important that you know what other people are doing so that you don't breach their intellectual rights. Okay, so that's how we can find out some of market information. In the, we should have got that. Let's see if I can get up the. What am I talking? We've actually created a for you to fill in. I'm not sure if my machine was throwing things over the screen. We made up a template for you to use. Now, the template can be PDF. You can enter everything in directly to the PDF document. Now, if you're not happy using that structure, you're more than welcome to create your own. But just ensure you cover each one of these points, right? The industrial analysis, competitor analysis, service pricing strategy, and the SWOT analysis. This is what we'll be marking it on, so it's very important that you are very clear how you're addressing each of these points. Okay, so we have to do the industry analysis, and there's several aspects there. Legal factors, is there regulation involved? So if you're involved in, for example, a medical industry, the medical is very, very heavily regulated, and you have to go through a rather complex process to get your devices approved in medical environments. So that will have an impact on and particularly your costing, because these tests can be very, very expensive. Telecommunications is the same. Automotive, not quite as bad, but it's similar. And we've got a few people working on that. But some areas it doesn't. The other thing to think of is the overall political stability. Market is solely in a country that tends to be a little bit politically unstable. You might have to have alternate plans. Be very careful of what you're doing within that environment. I used it if you were, say, producing a tourist service and you wanted to include lots of images in your tourist service, visit a certain place, etc. There is a law there, I'm not sure if it's still in effect, but it was until recently, that it is illegal to take pictures of any government building or military or other things. So you would need to ensure, for the political reasons, that any images you in your service do not include pictures of what are determined to be government buildings. You have to be aware of the political and legal situation in that country. Okay, so economic factors that can affect your business. Rates of inflation, availability of labour, the cost of distribution, etc. They're fairly strong. But the ones, as I said, if you're looking at an international market, there's some issues that you should be well aware of, such as the local tax. In Australia, we've got the Netflix tax, which taxes all purchases at 10%, and it's then up to the seller to collect that money for the Australian government and send it in. So you become an unpaid Australian if Australia is going to be your market. The expense of doing that is quite high, and you'd have to think, well, is that market big enough to warrant the amount of effort I have to put into to be a tax collector for that particular? Same sort of situation. UK, you've got VAT, where some states have sales tax. So you've got to be aware of your legal obligations of collecting tax on behalf of governments. We also need to look at the social aspects, business, things like population growth. If you're aiming at a particular demographic, make sure that you've accounted for the kind of people that would be in the market for your technology factor. Really important, particularly for us. What advancements and developments are happening? Are you going to go to all the expense of producing your whiz-bang snail tracker only to find out somebody has technology which makes it cheaper and more effective and puts you out of the market? So you've really the future of where things are heading. Critical to most of us in developed countries is remember to look at internet access. Not every country has good access. Australia has a wonderful national broadband network, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, depends where you live. But generally we've got okay-ish internet. However, if you were deciding that my product, subsistence farmers in Burma, or Myanmar as we should say, and parts of rural India, there might be or very, very poor internet connectivity. So you'll either have to design for low bandwidth requirements or find another technology to give you that gateway access, such as going all the way back to GSM and 3G telephone networks. It also works at the other. Got emerging technologies that will actually improve the of access for your particular product. Finally, in this industry, what are the current trends that are affecting the industry? What are the barriers for you to enter that particular industry? And some of those barriers could be fairly simple things like control of the industry. Thinking back to the 90s, if you wanted to get into the computer software market, you had to work with Microsoft. If they really liked your product, they produced their own and undercut the market, and you would, much like they did with Internet Explorer being given away and destroying Netscape. The other barriers for entry is brand reputation. I think I mentioned this a bit more further on. Yes, on the next slide, actually. I'll go to that. On the competitor analysis. So, on the competitor analysis, you've got to be aware of how much market people have. Of the Microsoft monopoly, it was very hard to get established. You wouldn't get another operating system. Everyone was using Microsoft operating systems. Nearly killed Apple. It killed from IBM, and really, brought us back to one operating system. How long has your competitor been in business? Which means they have certain reputation. They are very, very experienced in selling into this market. They know a lot about their customers, and that's really important. If everyone is new to this particular industry, then you've got a great advantage there. This field, we would like to have a brief description of the competitive product, just describe what it is, what it does, how much of the market it currently controls. Again, that's critically important, because if they control 100% of the market, you're not going to get in there. If they control a large segment, you've really got to be looking at how you can provide a value to customers that is better than that particular. Look at their strengths, understand what is good about your competition, because maybe you can do something along the same line, or compete on those strengths, but also look at the weaknesses, of course. So is there something they're not doing wrong? If we look at the Unix versus Windows, it was out there everywhere, everyone knew it, relatively easy to use, and its weakness was stability. So when they say, well, we're nice and stable, we're scalable, we can handle large work, their weakness was, of course, it wasn't particularly. So knowing both strengths and weaknesses is critically important, and there's a section in the document for that. Sorry, the costing strategies. Now, this again is critically important, and there's a variety of ways of doing it. The pricing strategy should look at, do you include all of your R&D cost recovery? Is this a philanthropic idea, or is the idea to maximize your profit? And I found this to Josh, and he can pop it in the chat window. Pop it in the chat window. Good, very brief description of different pricing strategies. So I suggest you go off and have a look at this particular one, and decide on which one of these type of pricing strategies you want to work with. As I said, it's nice and brief, but it's a fairly good idea of the range of things that are available. Okay, so pricing strategy, critically important. Have a look at that. Have a look at different forms of pricing strategy. But to me, it mostly two options. Do you want to recover all of the costs and make a profit, or do you want to be philanthropic? The last section that we need to do on the report is the SWOT analysis. Weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Be very realistic on what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses. Where are the opportunities for your product, and what could happen which would cause your product to fail. Now, I've just put up a little example one there to give you an idea, and it was dealing with a smartphone. Okay, this is used a lot in any business analysis, but it's probably the first things any investors would ask you to do for them, because it's nice, brief summary. Business people like brief summaries. They don't like to have to read too much, everything on a single page, so they can get a general overview. And this is a good way of doing it. All right, so this is all I wanted to cover there. So if you can, I'm going to go and find that document, which means stop sharing. I'll find the document and we'll bring it up for you to have a look at. So, gosh, anyone got questions? We've got a few more in now, that's good.
If anyone has a question or a comment to make at the moment, you can raise your hand or type in the chat window. We don't have any yet, Ian, but put that link up for everyone that was on Ian's recent slide, the pricing strategy.
You've got it already? Good.
Also on the discussion boards if anyone was looking for it later.
Looking for that.
And yeah, Brian, yes, you have a question? Go ahead.
So who are my competitors? Can you guys hear me? So could you give us an example of a competitor For example, if I'm trying to make a cell phone, would my competitors be like Samsung or Apple or
Yeah.
those kind of companies?
If you're making a new mobile phone, your competitors would be probably you can put them just into two camps. You've got the iOS Apple products. Uh, you would have to decide which one you're going after first, and then concentrate on the strengths and weaknesses of the one you've decided to work with. So if you want to compete with which level of market that you're trying to compete. So are you doing entry level? Are you doing general smartphone, or are you aiming at the premium market? And from that, you would then remove some of the other competitors. So, for example, I don't know Oppo phones. They're another Chinese brand. They're very much aiming at the low to mid range entry. If you were deciding to create a premium phone, you would not bother looking too much at the Oppo phones. However, you would very much look at the LG and Samsung phones to compete with. Does that sort of answer your question?
Assuming we're all trying to be entrepreneurs, trying to set up our own companies, right?
Yep.
I see. I see. That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I'd also look at if you're in a situation like that where you have very large, strong competitors, it's quite often worth approaching, trying to work with them as a partner. So if you've got a new feature that works on a phone, so it takes holographic pictures instead, um, it's probably more feasible to approach one of the companies and try and get them to invest in your technology. So you license it to them. Because of this market share, you're talking about it's, it's something like 10 billion phones globally, only 6 billion or 7 billion people. So there's more phones than there are people. It's actually more phones than there are toothbrushes, but that's a different matter. Um, it's going to be very hard for a small company to compete in that market, just because it's so big. The players that are in there are absolutely huge. You know, look at the size of LG, look at the size of Apple. It'd be very hard to break in. So in some cases where it is a very large mass market, you're better off proving your idea, getting a good prototype together, and approaching somebody to license it.
Thank you for answering my question.
Okay. Still looking for that. I know I have it here somewhere. Vel's here. How are you going, Vel? Have you had any contact with anyone? Vel's here, but may not be able.
Yeah, sorry. Get my mouse across to the right place. Yeah, I think sounding very, very interesting. So I just wanted to come to a different timed class to see what plans they have.
Well, it's good you're here. Has anyone got programming questions or big data questions? How they're going to store data? How they're going to access it?
We also have Harness here, if any on that as well.
See, oh, there you are. Let me just show this. I'm just trying to find where I put that particular document. Oh yeah, this is not. This is the. The PDF should be now available. Josh.
I can't see it yet. We can see you at this point.
No. I'm still looking for the PDF, but I haven't actually got it.
Okay.
I'll bring the Word version up. It's pretty much the same.
Week 7, the PDF was available. Check.
Okay, I just couldn't locate it at this point in time. But this is the guide that we've produced. We can see it, can you? Right here?
Yes, and your Word document, yes.
Yep. It's PDF, editable PDF. So it's much as I said on the slides. So we've got a section on the market research and different in there. As I said, this is a guide. If you want to do it differently, great. Go ahead and we like to see a little bit of originality. But just make sure that you do those points because we have to mark against these. If people ask how long should it be, I'll answer with this reply. How long is a piece of string? It is as long as it needs to be. So don't work on page lengths. Make sure that you explain everything. If it's brief, that's good. But make sure you cover each of the points. So, as I said, it'll look very much like this. Examples in there so you can have an idea of the, the kind of things we're actually looking at. And there's a template for the SWOT analysis. And that will be uploaded as normal through edX. Okay, have we got anyone looking for some help on anything?
No, I can't see any, but now is the time if anyone would like to ask or discuss anything.
Okay. Is anyone using inertial measurement units for their projects? Anyone here? Probably you are. If not, if you've got a question sensible, you can let us know now, and we can run briefly any issues that we've run across with them. Most are fairly straightforward, but some of them have got little quirk features that you need to be aware of.
I'm not sure if Brian has a question or he's not hearing everything properly through the audio quality.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's Brian. It was inertial measurement units that Ian was referring to, asking if anyone is using those as part of their project.
Okay, so he is using an IMU.
I don't think so. I think you just missed the question.
Sorry?
You just missed the question, that's all.
Oh, right. I was just asking if anyone was using IMUs because they're my favourite sensor at the moment. Things with it, particularly in the medical fields. Okay, leave before time. This really is, we're trying to get you guys to drive this. We're on these sessions so that we can help you with your prototype. So just speak up, ask something, talk about the platforms. If someone picked a particular platform to be running on, tell us about it. Why did you pick it? Why are you using a Raspberry Pi? Why are you an ARM Cortex? Be nice to know why. Okay. Oh, Robert. Muted. I think you might want to say something.
Do you have a question? He's got poor internet, so typing, I believe.
Yep, you can hear the typing. Uh-huh. Oh, okay, so you...
ESP32 with integrated LoRa?
Yeah, the ESP32s are really popular with students here. They're nice and cheap. They're relatively powerful. There's a whole range of them you can get. You do programming. Yep. Oh, right, I remember that one. Yes, yeah, that's good. And the LoRa is a really good choice too. You're not going to have huge amounts of data that you want to transmit. So the 100 kilobits, sorry, 100. I forget what the data rate. You better, I think, per second. Should be more than adequate for GPS altitude and other attributes. Ultralights, or is it just the actual tracking? I know we talked about this earlier because I just had a thought that using my favorite sensor, locally logging I was wondering, Robert, if you were going to use any other sensors or do any onboard processing on the ultralight, or is it just the position and altitude information that you'll be transmitting? I know we talked about this earlier, but I can't recall exactly what we covered. Aha, shock sensors, yeah. Because I think that capturing the G-forces on the aircraft at various points might be quite interesting, and it won't add a great deal of weight. You won't be able to transmit all the information to the base station, but that could be done once you or just do a local storage, do some processing on it with the small processor you've got to reduce the storage requirements. And you can have all kinds of things like pitch, altitude, any shocks the aircraft experiences. So you could look at this in the very long term to predict metal fatigue or the need for extra maintenance because the been too much flex or movement in the wings. You know a lot more about this than I do. But it might actually be quite interesting to collect, log that locally, then post-process it, transmit it once you've landed over a longer period of time when you no longer need the GPS type locations. Would that be something that be is it already done?
You had some of that listed as a future enhancement. And Aloba Tande says he'd like to use ESP32 for face recognition.
It's probably possible to use ESP32s for face recognition, but you may have to do some work. Now, Hannes and Valerie are much more competent at this than me. Would one of you like, if you do the cloud, send your model down to the ESP for the local recognition? So, train in the cloud, get the model down to the controller, and that processor intensive, memory intensive. Would that be correct, Hannes or Valerie?
I'm not familiar with the ESP, but certainly the training is in many cases much more intensive than feature detection. So it really depends what types of features you're looking at. You probably need to go both ways. First of all, test what features your ESP can detect, then use those features to train the face recognition in the cloud, then bring that training back to the ESP. That would be my thought.
The ESP is not a particularly powerful processor. It is a 32-bit reasonable clock speed. Let's see, what would be? I'd compare it to something like a old 386 in processing power.
That is likely to be less of a problem because you could just skip a few frames in the processing.
Yeah, I think that's all you need to do. Frames. And capture frames until you get a match.
I just want to make a comment also on Brian's project. Is Brian going to be keeping effectively a log of the flying? Because we had a project a couple of years ago here where some students were logging skydiving, and essentially they were using also basically a phone to log each skydive and turn that into the log book that you're required to take of skydives. So if there's something like that that you're looking at, Brian, feel free to get in touch with me via email. I'd be happy to discuss it.
Yeah. Going back to when we had our brief conversation before, it's a really interesting project with these. I think it's got huge potential in looking at the long-term maintenance and usage, and a bit like that. I forget what the cycle program is. People have this cycle program they can share. Is it again? I can't remember. I've got it on my phone for my wonderful electric bike, but I can't see it. But the ability to share your flight
my
pass.
ride or something.
I don't think it's My Ride. It's some funny name. Where is it?
And while you're looking at that, Aloba was saying the face recognition with the ESP32, intending to use that for validation of mouse detection. If I recall, he was creating a smart mouse trap that or something along.
Yeah, that's the object detection. So I think it'd be the same sort of thing. You'd capture lots and lots of images of mouses in the system, and then use the model back at the 32 site. I might actually be able to pass them more on if you contact me later on. I've got a student that's working on sharks, so picking up images of sharks drones, and that's going to be very, very similar in concept because the processing has to be done reasonably locally. A shark or a mouse is just really a training set, I think. I might be able to pass on.
One piece of advice with that training, be fairly careful about the backgrounds of your pictures, because there's a very famous story about a dog detection program that was really, really good at detecting, in particular, huskies. And it turned out it did that because the background was always a snow background. It was detecting the background, not the foreground.
Yeah, there's also a very similar one about the military that was, and it was really, really good on sets. And when they tried some random photos, they found out it was actually detecting whether it was a cloudy day or not. The shark one is very much dependent on the watercolor and whether it's wavy, choppy, large waves, etc. So that's again the problem. Again, speaking not as an expert in machine learning, you don't really know what they're learning. That's not. How are we going, everyone? Anyone else got questions? All right, maybe. There we go. Strava, AVA, and that does rides that you can share your rides where you're going, map it. Other people. I'm bringing up. See if don't you? I don't use it enough. Okay. Vel or Hans, would you mind finding a few links to object recognition, face recognition that we could actually post up in the just how to get started on doing it, how to do the training, etc.
No problems.
Excellent. So just send them through to me. I'll get them posted up, or send actually me because Josh is abandoning us for the time being. Get them posted up on the discussion boards.
I suggest you also talk to the Innovation Center because they have that demo set up of the object recognition system that they have at the center, and maybe even a video of that may be of interest to our students.
Yeah. Yes, we shall try and do that. We'll have a chat. You in today, by the way, Hannes, or you're working from home?
I waved to you about half an hour ago, Ian. So yes, I'm in my office at the moment.
Okay, I'll come and see you about that that example.
Okay, cool.
I was probably struggling to get my machine working.
Possibly, yes. I do have a meeting coming up at 9, but yeah.
That's okay. Whenever we get a chance, I'll get the details
Sure.
of that. Innovation Central object. Okay, so if around for the next. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming along. We will look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. If you have questions, email them through. If you want to discuss something online with us during these sessions, just make a couple of notes or email it through earlier, and that will prepare some answers for you. Look up any interesting bits and pieces that would be relevant and discuss them with everyone who's here. Keep a close eye over the next few weeks. Going to take a much more active role in there because there isn't much else in the content. It's more developing your prototype. So keep looking in the discussion boards. As I said, we're all through those and through pre-prepared that we've been doing so far. And of course, these sessions will continue. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll hang around, but we shall see you later on.